Anybody
I
else who
would,
wanted to share something?
yeah, I would love to answer this question too. And similar to Melvis, I am first generation American. My mother's from Costa Rica, my father's from the West Indies, Martinique, so French and Latin. And then I was born and raised in the US. So I feel like I have like a whole lot of culture in my household and in my body. And in particular, this year in particular, I've had a lot of older white male clients. And two in particular stand out to me. And then when I talk about this, it's because A, I'm female, and these were, executives, older white males that had daughters. And this one in particular had two daughters, and he was having such a hard time connecting with them, talking to them, being around them, finding things to have in common. And so one of the biggest things in my culture that we did from the Latin side and the French side is having dinner means like everyone sits down at the table. No, well, there were no cell phones back then, like no distractions, like no books, no, like we're all sitting down and we're going to be together for the entirety of the dinner and the meal. And for some reason that came up, and I asked my client to try that with his two daughters. And he did. And he told me that they try to do it at least twice a month, which is beautiful, right? Especially for people who aren't used to that practice. And it felt good. It felt really good connecting what seemed like second nature to me because it was in my household to someone who didn't have that experience and was able to help him connect to his two younger daughters. So I love that my culture and my background, even though it's not something I always pull on, it's just there. And like that answer just kind of came up quickly. I'm like, well, do you ever eat dinner with them? And he's like, well, no, one's in the living room, one's on her iPad, one's, and I'm like, okay, let's stop all that and you guys can sit together. So I'm happy to share that he's been successful with that. And it was nice to share.
Oh, that's great, Natalie. And is it
Victoria, that was great. And I love your question, right? Like, how do these, your initial question, like, how do these people that are different from ourselves find us? And I actually often ask myself that question as a business owner. But what I find is that culture, I have my culture from my home and from my parents, but then I have the culture that I created as I was growing up. And one part of my culture was that I worked in corporate America for over 23 years, and I just have that like skill set. And I met these people at a fair in person, and I was talking a lot about burnout and stress and managing workload and work-life balance. And hearing those words automatically, like for people who are in that corporate world, it's like a trigger for them. So we connected on a whole nother separate piece of like a newer culture of my, of my being. But I love that question because ultimately it didn't really even matter that we were that different, and we couldn't have been more the same, like more different. We were completely opposite ends, but yet he found so much value in the things that we talked about and worked through and tried, and I loved it. But on the flip side of that, I also get a lot of clients that see me as a minority female and just want me for that too. So it's a very interesting, beautiful thing because it is energy that we're sharing with one another, and there gets to be a certain level of trust there. And so I like that within our beings we have many different kind of cultural aspects, right? And so the fact that I don't have to rely on just my skin cultural aspects, I can rely on like my life experience cultural aspects. And it's been great to experience clients from both sides of that spectrum. And I no longer just cater to women now, right? Like I've opened up my business to anyone, because I even have like kids in high school now where I didn't think about that. So it's a beautiful thing. And to your point, we are all different healers, and we're all culturally different and still serve the same purpose, which is helping others no matter what. So
that was beautiful.
oh, see, when you said that, I heard my dad's voice. It's like, no, it was like a no way, you don't need help, you're not crazy, you're not this, you're not that, you're not it. And it was just like, why go to a therapist? So I was in a similar household where therapy and seeking help was seen as that you're weak, and it's not. It's the complete opposite. Admitting that you need help takes so much courage. For those listeners, if you need help and you admit it and you seek help, high five to you. You are courageous. But to answer your question, MJ, my answer is a little cliche about what culture taught me. So because I'm biracial, when I was growing up and like in the teen years and you're kind of awkward, people would always ask me, well, like, well, are you Latin or are you Black? And I always had such a hard time. Like, what do you mean? I'm both. Like, well, people always wanted me to choose an identity through my culture. And I think my biggest lesson, you know, years later was just I love that I'm different and that I have both. Like, why would I want to be limited to just one when I have both of these beautiful cultures? And I think learning to accept my differences is what I learned about culture. Like when I accept my differences and that I'm different, it's easier for me to accept it in other people. And it's great because I work with other people all day long. But that was one of the biggest lessons for me. Like I hated that people always wanted me to choose, and I didn't get it as a younger, but you know, kids always just want to know an easy answer. There was no easy answer to that, but the answer for me now is that I'm both, and I love it, and I love being from two different cultures, and it's only made me a better, well-rounded person, and I'm happy about that.
It's beautiful.
I think
It was
yeah, I like what Victoria said earlier about like selecting help by just people's exterior. Like maybe double think that if you're looking for a clinician or therapist or healer or life coach, like look beyond the exterior, because you'd be surprised to know that we're not all that different once we're inside of our hearts.
absolutely.
Yeah.